We have the great honor to invite and welcome the Most Venerable Dhammavamso Mahatero from Vietnam. Most Venerable Dhammavamso Mahatero, also known as Chakun Sadavamso, a title granted by the king, the Thai king, was born on March 10, 1957, in Trong Tri province in Vietnam. He renounced in 1971 and became a Samanera in 1973 at Tam Bao Temple, Da Nang City, Vietnam, under the guidance of Most Venerable Titala Mahatero. He was fully ordained as a bhikkhu in 1979 at Ki Vien Temple, Ho Chi Minh City, with Most Venerable Arahants Mahatero as his preceptor. He received his bachelor's in Chinese language, a master's and a doctorate in education management. At present, he is the abbot of Abhi Sunya Rama Hoa Yen Hoang Temple in Ho City, Vietnam, since 1988. Previously, he was the chief of staff of the Sangharaja of Vietnam Theravada Buddhist Sangha from 1998 to 2002. Since 2017, he has been a member of the National Executive Council of Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. And since 2018, he is a Vice Director of Vietnam Buddhist Research Institute. He has always been active in the Dhamma propagation and social activities and has been acting as the Deputy Chief of the Buddhist Sangha in Tao Tien Hoa Province. He is also the member of the Executive Committee of the International Association of Theravada Buddhist Universities and a member of the International Association of Buddhist Universities. It is with great pleasure and honor that on behalf of this year's Chief Organizer, Vietnam, they have respectfully invited this senior Mahatero to begin the Dhamma talks under the sacred Bodhi tree. Tonight we will have translation also into English by Venerable Sister Leo Phap from Vietnam, Bhikkhuni Sister Leo Phap, and we welcome her into this as a translator for this evening's Dhamma talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Wang Mo. Let me introduce in Vietnamese about our Dhamma speaker tonight. Kính bạch chư tôn đức tăng ni, kính thưa quý Phật tử. Năm nay, Việt Nam là nước đăng cai tổ chức kỳ trùng tùng tam tạng Pali quốc tế lần thứ 17 tại Bồ Đề Đào Tràng. Và ban tổ chức đã cung thỉnh Ngài Hòa Thượng Pháp Tông Dhammavamso qua Ấn Độ để thuyết bài Pháp trong buổi đầu tiên ngày 3 tháng 12 năm 2022. Ngài Hòa Thượng bài Pháp là trong buổi đầu tiên ngày Phó Ban Trị sự năm 2000 Phật giáo tỉnh Thừa Thiên Huế, trưởng ban điều hành Phật giáo Nam Tông buổi đầu tiên Huế, Phó Ban Trị sự trưởng Học viện Nghiên cứu Phật giáo Thừa Thiên Huế, Viện Phật điều Viện Nghiên cứu Phật học Việt Nam và là Phó Ban Trị sự chùa Viện Nghiên cứu Phật thành phố Huế, Viện Phật điều Viện Nghiên cứu nghiệp cử Việt Nam và là Phó Ban Trị sự tiếng Trung Viện Nghiên cứu Phật thành thạc sĩ và tiến sĩ Viện Nghiên cứu nghiệp bị giáo dục và là Phó Ban Trị sự hôm nay Viện Nghiên cứu và thành thạc sĩ và tiến sĩ Viện Nghiên cứu nghiệp giáo dục và là Phó Ban Trị sự hôm nay Viện và để thạc sĩ và tiến sĩ Viện Đạo Tràng đã trang nghiêm thanh tịnh. Chúng con kính cung thỉnh ngài hòa thượng từ bi thanh tịnh thời chúng con kính đạo tràng ngài hòa thượng nam mô bổn sư thích ca mâu ni chúng con kính đạo tràng ngài hòa thượng nam mô bổn sư thích ca mâu ni chúng con kính đạo tràng
Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Đệ tử kính lạy Đức Thế Tôn Sakkaya Gotama, bậc A La Hán chánh đẳng chánh giác. Kính bạch chư tôn đức tăng ni, kính thưa toàn thể Phật tử các giới hiện diện tại Bồ Đề đạo tràng này và đang lắng nghe trực tuyến.
Respect the Mahasangha, dear Dhamma friends and Buddhist devotees from all over the world who gather here under the retreat and also who are listening online.
Hôm qua chúng ta đã cùng nhau tụng đọc pháp thoại đầu tiên Đức Phật thuyết giảng có tên là Kinh Chuyển Pháp Luân.
Yesterday evening, we have together chanted the First Sutra taught by the Buddha, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta.
Và tối nay, chúng tôi xin được chia sẻ với toàn thể chư tôn đức và quý vị nội dung của bài kinh này.
And this evening, I would like to share with you the content of this sutra.
Chuyển Pháp Luân là tên gọi được đời sau khi hệ thống hóa lại lời dạy của Đức Phật đặt tên, vì là bài kinh đầu tiên vận chuyển bánh xe Pháp.
The name Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta was named later by those who have gathered at the Buddhist Council because it was the first sutta that the Buddha set in the motion the wheel of the Dhamma.
Nội dung chủ yếu bài pháp thoại này, Đức Phật giảng về con đường trung đạo.
The main content of this sutta is about the middle part.
Con đường trung đạo này có hai nội dung chủ yếu.
The middle part has two basic meanings.
Thứ nhất là phải từ bỏ hai lối sống cực đoan. Thứ nhất đó là đắm say dục lạc, và thứ hai là khổ hạnh ép sát.
The first meaning is to avoid the two extremes. One is indulgence in the sensual pleasures, and the second is asceticism.
Nội dung thứ hai chính là học hiểu về con đường giác ngộ và thực hành để thoát khổ.
And the second meaning is to understand the way to escape from suffering and to liberation.
Sau khi giới thiệu như vậy rồi, Đức Phật liền đi sâu vào nội dung.
After introducing the middle path, then the Buddha come into details.
Ngài giới thiệu về con đường thoát khổ.
The Buddha introduced the path that lead to the cessation of suffering.
Phần đầu, Ngài giới thiệu về 4 sự thực liên hệ đến khổ.
The first part, he said about the fourfold noble truth that is concerning with the dukkha or suffering.
Gồm có các hiện tượng khổ, nguyên nhân sinh khổ, thoát khổ và con đường thực hành để thoát khổ.
Including the phenomena of the suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering.
Có thể nói, pháp thoại này là một trong những nội dung chủ yếu, tối quan trọng của Phật học.
We can say that this content, the Four Noble Truths, is the core of the Buddha's teaching.
Cùng với hai nội dung khác là tánh duyên khởi, tánh vô ngã, thì nội dung bài kinh này nói về tánh sinh diệt, tạo nên thể chân vạc của tư tưởng Phật học.
Together with the two doctrines, the doctrine of anatta or no self and the doctrine of paticca samuppada, dependent origination, this formed the triangles or the tripod of the Buddha's teaching.
Tất cả những vị giác ngộ đều phải giác ngộ ba pháp tánh này.
All the enlightened people, if they want to become a Buddha, they have to realize these three doctrine or reality.
Như chúng ta biết, Ngài Côn Đanh Nhã, một trong 5 vị môn đệ đầu tiên được nghe pháp thoại này, sau khi hiểu được nội dung, Ngài đã phát thành lời: cái gì có sinh thì có diệt. Đó chính là ý nghĩa của pháp nhãn thấy được tánh sinh diệt.
As you know, one of the first 5 disciples of the Buddha, Venerable Kondanyo, after he listened to the first sutta by the Buddha, he uttered the sentence, Yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabbang tang nirodha dhammanti. What is dependent on arising, that must be ceased or ended.
Bây giờ chúng tôi xin được chia sẻ từng phần một.
Now I would like to share part by part.
Thứ nhất là về sự thực liên hệ đến khổ, đó là các hiện tượng khổ.
The first is the truth of suffering or the phenomena of suffering.
Đức Phật đã chia tất cả các hiện tượng khổ thành 3 nhóm.
The Buddha has divided all kinds of suffering into 3 categories.
Thứ nhất là các hiện tượng khổ mang tính vật lý.
The first group is on the kind of suffering that is physical.
Nhóm thứ hai có tên là do chúng sống tương tác mà hình thành khổ.
And the second group is the suffering that is caused by the common living with others.
Nhóm thứ ba quan trọng nhất đó là ngộ nhận, hiểu sai về bản chất của hiện tượng hợp thể thân tâm này.
And the third kind of suffering is the misunderstanding the reality of this mind and body.
Nhóm hiện tượng khổ thứ nhất liên hệ đến tính vật lý, đó là sinh, già, bệnh, chết.
The first kind of suffering that is physical can be mentioned birth, old age, sickness and death.
Nhóm khổ thứ hai liên hệ đến chung sống tương tác, đó là yêu thương mà phải xa lìa thì khổ, không thích ghét nhau nhưng phải chung đụng, chung sống thì khổ. Và thứ ba đó là mong muốn nhưng không được đáp ứng, không thỏa mãn thì khổ.
And the second group of suffering that is caused by the common living with others included 3 kinds. First is we have to be associated with those who we don't like, or we have to be separated from those who we like, and we cannot get what we want.
Nhóm khổ cuối cùng liên hệ đến nhận thức sai, hiểu sai, ngộ nhận về bản chất của hiện tượng, của hợp thể thân tâm này, nên tạo ra vô số khổ sầu.
And the third kind of suffering is misunderstanding or misconcept of this combination of mind and body.
Phần thứ hai của sự thực liên hệ đến khổ đó là nguyên nhân sinh khổ.
The second noble truth concerning dukkha is the cause of suffering.
Đức Phật chỉ ra rằng mọi nỗi khổ trên thế gian chỉ xuất phát từ một nguyên nhân.
The Buddha said that all kinds of suffering in this world is caused by only one cause or reason.
Đúng như bài kệ mà Ngài Āssachi dạy cho thanh niên Sariputta khi hỏi về giáo pháp của đấng giác ngộ là gì.
As Venerable Āssachi have answered the young man Sariputta when he first met.
Ngài Āssachi đã trả lời rằng tất cả các pháp đều sinh từ một nhân, nhân ấy Như Lai đã chỉ rõ, và Ngài cũng đã chỉ dạy cách diệt trừ nhân ấy. Đó là lời dạy của bậc đạo sư.
Venerable Asachi said that all the phenomena in this life is caused by one cause. The Buddha has described that cause, and he also described the way to cease, to end that cause.
Vậy thì nguyên nhân duy nhất đó là gì? Đó chính là tham ái.
That only cause of sufferings is tanha or craving.
Tuy nhiên, tham ái được phân làm 3 dạng thức.
Tanha is also divided into 3 kinds.
Thứ nhất là tham ái đối với các mọi dục lạc trên thế giới, cho nên gọi là dục ái.
The first one is called kama tanha or craving of sensual pleasure.
Mọi ham muốn của chúng ta, mọi việc làm của chúng ta trên đời đều chỉ để nhắm đến thỏa mãn 5 loại tham muốn, đó là
all our desire, all our activities in this life is aimed at attaining the 5 kinds.
thứ nhất, tiền tài của cải; thứ hai, sắc đẹp, tuổi xuân; thứ ba, địa vị chức tước; thứ tư, ăn uống thỏa mãn; và thứ năm, ngủ nghỉ, giải trí, vân vân.
The 5 kinds that everyone in this world try to aim at is first, money; second, beauty; the third, fame; the fourth is food; and the fifth is sleeping, and concerning with sleeping.
Còn một số chúng sanh sau khi đã thỏa mãn, hoặc loại thứ hai là quá mệt mỏi về việc tầm cầu các loại dục lạc này, đã chán nản và tìm cách từ bỏ chúng, tìm cầu đến một loại dục lạc cao cấp hơn, đó là tầm cầu sự thanh tịnh và trường tồn.
And among those who are looking for these kinds of sensual pleasures, some feel exhausted and tired and bored, and then they stop and they turn around and to find another way to find pleasure.
Tức hữu ái, hoặc còn gọi là tham ái cõi sắc giới.
And that is the kinds of meditation that lead to the tranquility, and it is also a kind of craving, and it is called phava tanha, or craving with the form.
Một số chúng sinh sau khi tồn tại quá lâu trong cõi sắc giới cũng mệt mỏi, hoặc là một số sáng suốt để thấy ra rằng sau khi chấm dứt thanh tịnh nhờ năng lực của định, một khi năng lực của định hết thì phàm tâm lại khởi lên. Phàm tâm ấy nhờ sự trợ lực của định sẽ dẫn chúng sanh đi thẳng xuống địa ngục. Vì vậy mệt mỏi, chán ngán và sợ hãi, họ không muốn tồn tại trên vũ trụ này.
And even though the tranquility of the material forms realm is very calm and very subtle, but some realize that the samadhi, even though it is very calm, but it cannot last very long. And if when the samadhi is finished, and when the worldly mind or the kama chitta, the worldly mind arises, then all kinds of defilements also arises, and it may lead that person to be born into the bad realms, even the hells.
Số chúng sanh này nhờ năng lực của định tứ thiền và niệm khởi về không muốn tồn tại, cho nên chẳng bao lâu họ rơi vào một cảnh giới mới, đó là không vô biên xứ thiên.
And therefore, they when they are tired of the material form, then they practice another kind of meditation, and this meditation is higher, and it leads them to be escaped from the form, and they will be enter into akasa nanchayatana. We can say that it is the form of infinite space.
Sau khi tồn tại trong thế giới này một thời gian, cảnh giới này một thời gian, các vị ấy nhận ra thực ra cảnh giới này chỉ là sản phẩm của định cộng với thức. Do vậy họ từ bỏ không vô biên xứ và trở thành chúng sanh ở thức vô biên xứ thiền.
After abiding in this realm of the infinite space, they realize that this is only a result of samadhi and vijnana. That is why they leave this realm and they enter into a higher realm that is called the infinite consciousness.
Hàng chúng sanh này sau một thời gian cũng nhận ra rằng mình vẫn tồn tại giữa dạng thức. Do đó họ khởi niệm muốn từ bỏ luôn cả thức này, cho nên rơi vào cảnh giới vô sở hữu xứ thiền.
And after abiding in this kind of realm for a time, they can see that their consciousness is so subtle, and sometimes it is so subtle that it cannot be say is it or not. And that realm they enter into the realm that is called neither perception nor non-perception.
Một số chúng sanh trong cảnh giới thứ ba này của vô sắc giới sau một thời gian cũng nhận ra rằng họ vẫn đang tồn tại, chứ không phải không tồn tại. Do vậy bằng năng lực của định kèm thêm niệm tưởng muốn buông bỏ luôn cả thức ấy, vậy là họ tiếp tục rơi vào cảnh giới cuối cùng, đó là phi tưởng xứ thiền.
I misinterpret the third one is not neither perception nor non-perception, but it is the realm of nothingness. And after that, they come into the fourth realm of the arupa jhana. That is called neither perception nor non-perception. Neva sanya na sanya jhana.
Nói chung, dù tham ái đấy là dạng thức gì, dục ái, sắc ái hay vô sắc ái, thì chúng sanh vẫn mang những nỗi khổ riêng.
And whether they have kama tanha, phava tanha or vibhava tanha, they all have their own kinds of suffering.
Chỉ còn niết bàn tịch tịnh mới có thể chấm dứt tất cả mọi nỗi khổ.
Only the nibbana, that is the cessation of all of suffering.
Đó chính là nội dung của sự thực liên hệ đến khổ, chấm dứt khổ.
And that is the content of the truth concerning suffering and cessation of suffering.
Muốn đạt đến niết bàn tịch tịnh thì chúng ta phải từ bỏ các loại dục.
To attain nibbana, we have to abandon all kinds of karma or desire, craving.
Dục thô thảo như là dục ái, dục tinh vi và muốn tồn tại lâu dài là hữu ái, và dục muốn chấm dứt hoàn toàn, không còn dính mắc bất kỳ thứ gì trên đời đi nữa, thì cũng gọi là vô sắc ái.
From the grossest craving, that is the craving for sensual pleasure, to the more subtle craving, that is craving in the material form, and the most subtle craving is the craving for non-existence, but all are concerned or connected with craving.
Và con đường thực hành để chấm dứt khổ đó là bát chánh đạo.
And craving, all kinds of craving leads to suffering, And the way that leads to the escape or cessation of suffering is the Attaining Arahantship or the Eightfold Noble Path.
Chỉ khi học hiểu, thấu đáo, thực hành và trải nghiệm thì chúng sanh mới có thể thoát khổ bằng con đường bát chánh đạo này.
Only after studying, understanding and applying the Eightfold Noble Path, then we can attain the Nibbana.
Nội dung bát chánh đạo gồm chánh kiến, chánh tư duy, chánh ngữ, chánh nghiệp, chánh mạng, chánh tinh tấn, chánh niệm và chánh định.
The Eightfold Noble Path includes right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right concentration, and right mindfulness.
Đức Phật dạy có hai loại bát chánh đạo.
The Buddha said that there are two kinds of noble path.
Bát chánh đạo hữu lậu và bát chánh đạo vô lậu.
The worldly noble path and the noble or the supernormal, super mundane noble Eightfold Path and super mundane Eightfold Path.
Ví dụ chánh kiến hữu lậu đó là những hiểu biết hoặc là niềm tin về nhân quả nghiệp báo, các lý thuyết về tu học.
The mundane right view is the understanding of the good and the bad and the understanding of the practice.
Còn chánh kiến vô lậu tức là thấy ngay hay biết, liên hệ đến tuệ giác, đến thấy biết từ bỏ, thấy biết đoạn trừ, thấy biết chấm dứt, thấy biết xả ly vĩnh viễn.
And the supermundane right view is the view that is concerned with the abandoning, concerned with wisdom, concerned with releasing.
Chánh tư duy hữu lậu đó là các suy nghĩ, suy tư về từ, về bi, về quan tâm đến người khác, không sân, không hận.
The mundane right thought concerned with compassion or loving kindness or concerned with other people and about how to behave well in the daily life.
Còn chánh tư duy vô lậu có nghĩa là các suy nghĩ, các suy tư liên hệ đến buông xả, liên hệ đến chấm dứt tất cả mọi ràng buộc, liên hệ đến từ bỏ, từ ly đoạn tuyệt.
And the supermundane right thought is a thought concerning with the abandoning, concerning with the releasing of all attachment and abandoning all kinds of defilements.
Thứ ba là chánh ngữ hữu lậu có nghĩa là các nội dung liên hệ đến các phương tiện truyền thông như là ngôn ngữ, ký hiệu, tín hiệu, chữ viết vân vân, liên hệ đến các nội dung, liên hệ đến sự thực, không giả dối, liên hệ đến những cái thông tin dựa trên sự thực, không hoa mỹ, không thêm bớt và trung thành với sự thực.
Mundane right speech concerned with the daily communication through the writing, through the speaking, through the symbol, and we need to be very honest. We need to be truthful, and we do not use the very beautiful words without the true heart. And we should be insistence in mind when we speak to others.
Còn chánh ngữ vô lậu có nghĩa là từ bỏ tất cả các dạng lời nói, các cách nói, các phương tiện truyền đạt, không liên hệ đến sự thực, không liên hệ đến xả ly, không liên hệ đến chấm dứt khổ.
And the supermundane right speech, concerned with the abandoning on the speech, that is not leading to the emancipation, that they're not concerned with the truth.
Thứ tư là chánh nghiệp, đó là chánh nghiệp hữu lậu, tức là những hành vi về thân, không sát sinh, không trộm cắp, không tà hành.
The mundane right action is abandoning on the bad action, such as killing, stealing, or having sexual misconduct.
Còn chánh nghiệp vô lậu là từ bỏ tất cả các hành vi không phải chỉ là hành vi bất thiện, mà từ bỏ cả hành vi thiện.
And supermundane right speech is not only abandoning the unwholesome action, but even abandoning the wholesome actions.
Nói một cách dễ hiểu, đó là không còn tạo nghiệp bằng thân nữa.
And in another way, we can say that we stop causing karma through the body.
Thành tựu thứ 5 của bậc chánh đạo là chánh mạng. Chánh mạng hữu lậu đối với cư sĩ Phật tử tại gia thời Đức Phật thì đó là những cái nghề mà liên hệ đến tổn hại sinh linh khác, buôn bán nô lệ, chế tạo vũ khí, thuốc độc, vân vân.
The fifth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path is right livelihood. In the Buddha's time, the Buddha described clearly the right livelihood is to avoid those professions that concern with harming other people, like killing animals or making or selling weapons or selling intoxicant or poison.
Thời đại chúng ta thì nghề nghiệp phong phú và phức tạp hơn nhiều. Tuy nhiên, yếu tố chánh mạng vẫn là dựa trên nền tảng, đó là những nghề nghiệp nào mưu sinh, không tổn hại đến chúng sinh khác và có lương tâm nghề nghiệp trong khi mình hành nghề. Đó chính là hai yếu tố cơ bản.
In our modern time, right livelihood is more complicated, more professions, more jobs. But the spirit is that we need to make a living by a profession that does not harm other living beings, but make good things for the world, for the society, and for ourselves.
Còn các vị xuất gia thì từ thời Đức Phật hay cho đến thời hiện đại, chánh mạng vẫn chỉ là đi khất thực hoặc nhờ sự cúng dường hỗ trợ của thập phương bát tánh.
And the right livelihood for the monastics in the time of the Buddha and in the modern time is always the same. That is to go for alms or living on the donation of lay people.
Ba thành tố sau cùng của bậc chánh đạo có tên là chánh tinh tấn, chánh niệm, chánh định. Thì nó có hơi khác trong suy nghĩ của chúng tôi đối với vấn đề này. Đó là chánh tinh tấn chính là siêng năng chăm chỉ. Chánh niệm đó là đặt tâm, để tâm, chú tâm đúng mức khi thấy, nghe hay biết đối với đối tượng. Và chánh định đó là trạng thái tâm ổn định, không dao động, không lăng xăng.
And the three last factors of the Noble Eightfold Path is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. I have a rather different understanding from the books. In my opinion, right effort is to be diligent, right mindfulness is to pay enough attention to everything you are seeing, hearing, or thinking. And the samadhi or right concentration is to be concentrative enough in whatever we are doing.
5 thành tố đầu của bậc chánh đạo tức là chánh kiến, chánh tư duy, chánh ngữ, chánh mạc, chánh niệm, chánh mạng hiện lộ ra bên ngoài, chúng ta dễ thấy, và chúng chỉ có thể trở thành chánh khi được ám trợ, hỗ trợ ở phía sau bởi 3 thành tố chánh tinh tấn, chánh niệm, chánh định.
The first 5 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path is manifested outside. We can see it easily. You see right view, right thought, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. But these 5 factors can be right only when we have the 3 last factors, that is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, to be the foundation for the first 5 factors.
Xin được ví dụ, chẳng hạn như khi chúng ta thấy bằng mắt, muốn có thể chúng ta khi tiếp xúc đối tượng đúng với sự thực, không bị tham ái, không bị sân hận, không bị bản ngã chi phối, thì nhất thiết phải có 3 yếu tố, đó là siêng năng chăm chỉ khi mình hướng tâm vào đối tượng nhìn. Thứ hai là đặt tâm để tâm vào đối tượng, chứ không phải là chỉnh mạng bị sao lãng qua chuyện khác. Muốn như vậy, chúng phải đặt trên nền tảng một cái tâm ổn định, không lăng xăng, không dao động.
For example, when we see something with our eyes, in order to see it rightly, first we need to have right effort. That is, we are not absent-minded. We should be there, diligent in what we are seeing, and after that we should have the right mindfulness. That is, we pay enough attention to the object. And the last factor, samadhi or right concentration. That is, our mind should be calmed down, should be balanced, and should not be restless.
5 thành tố bên ngoài này hiện lộ ra bên ngoài, và 3 thành tố ám trợ phía sau đó tạo thành một hợp thể thống nhất, hình thành nên con đường sống lành mạnh giải thoát.
The first 5 factors that are manifested outside and the 3 last factors that as at the foundation combine together and form a healthy way of living.
Ngài Kundanya sau khi nghe Đức Phật trình bày tường tận về 4 sự thực liên hệ đến khổ này, cuối pháp thoại Ngài đã chia sẻ cái cảm nhận của mình, đó là hóa ra cái gì có sinh thì có diệt.
Venerable Kundanya, after he listened on the sutta, he found out that everything turned out to be not permanent. Everything that is rising must come to an end.
Và Đức Phật đã xác nhận thấy biết của Ngài là đúng với sự thực. Ngài gọi tôn giả Kundanya là người đã thấy pháp.
The Buddha confirmed, reaffirmed that his understanding is right, is correct, and he said that Kundanya has already realized Anyasi Kundanyo.
Cái thấy biết của Ngài về bản chất hiện tượng sự vật đầu tiên đó là thấy được tính sinh diệt của hiện tượng.
The first realization of Venerable Kundanya is to realize the arising and passing away of all phenomena.
Tuy nhiên, Ngài chưa thể tiến nhập sâu vào giải thoát. Vì vậy, như chư tôn đức và quý Phật tử có tìm hiểu về giáo pháp biết, sau pháp thoại này Đức Phật giảng tiếp một nội dung khác, đó là tánh vô ngã.
But even though he realized the impermanence, but he could not penetrate into the truth. That is why after that the Buddha taught another sutra to him, and that is the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta.
Thực ra thì nội dung tánh vô ngã chính là khai triển rộng rãi cái nhóm hiện tượng khổ thứ ba do ngộ nhận về hợp thể thân tâm này.
In fact, the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta is only the elaboration of the third kind of suffering, that is caused by the misunderstanding the nature of all phenomena.
Như chúng ta biết, Đức Phật dạy thân tâm này là một hợp thể gồm 5 tổ hợp.
As we know, the Buddha said that its mind and body is a combination of the 5 groups.
Đó là hợp thể về hình tướng, hợp thể về cảm giác, hợp thể về hiểu biết tri giác, tổ hợp về phản ứng tình cảm, và cuối cùng là tổ hợp về sao chép lưu trữ chuyển giao.
The first group is a group of form. The second is a group of feeling. The third is a group of conception. The fourth group is about mental emotions and emotional. And the last group is about the mental cognition. Cái thứ năm sẽ tốt dùng từ gì? Thức uẩn nó sẽ giúp dùng cái từ gì? Nhọn thì cuối cùng là thức uẩn.
Nó là một ba chức năng này, sao chép, lưu trữ và chuyển giao.
The Vijnana Kanta, he translated as the 3 functions of the Vijnana Kanta. That is saving, sao chép, chuyển giao, transferring and
copy.
Huh?
Sao chép, copy, save and transfer.
Transfer. Copy, save. Copy, save and transfer. Yes.
Khi đã hiểu rõ bản chất của hợp thể thân tâm này, chúng được hình thành từ 5 tổ hợp. Không có cái gì ở trong hợp thể thân tâm này tồn tại lâu dài, hoặc là tồn tại vĩnh viễn, hoặc không thay đổi.
When we analyze these 5 groups, we find that nothing in these 5 groups that is permanent or can last long.
Các hiện tượng ấy sinh khởi tồn tại là tùy thuộc vào các điều kiện.
All the things in these 5 groups arise or cease depending on the conditions.
Do vậy, vị tu hành sẽ hiểu ra được 2 pháp tánh khác, đó là tính vô ngã ở trong hợp thể và tính duyên khởi của hiện tượng thân tâm.
And then we can understand 2 other characteristics upon the phenomena, that is the characteristic of no self or anatta, and the characteristic of dependent origination or paticca samuppada.
5 vị trong dòng Ngài Kiều Trần Như cuối bài pháp thoại thứ 2 đấy đã hiểu rõ 3 pháp tánh này. Vì vậy các vị đã trở thành các bậc vô sanh.
The 5 bhikkhus in the Kondanya group, after realizing these 3 characteristics of all phenomena, they got enlightened and became Arahants.
Thưa toàn thể chư tăng ni, thưa toàn thể quý Phật tử, hôm nay cơ duyên chúng ta gặp nhau ở đây dưới cổ Bồ đề thiêng liêng, nơi Đức Phật đã thành đạo. Chúng tôi xin mạn phép chia sẻ cái hiểu biết trải nghiệm của mình về lời dạy của Đức Phật trong pháp thoại kinh chuyển pháp luân.
Dear Venerable monks and nuns, Upasaka, Upasikas, this evening we have the condition to meet here, and under the sacred Bodhi tree, I humbly share with you my knowledge and experience in practicing and understanding the Four Noble Truths that is described in the First Sutra, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta.
Nội dung này xin hy vọng sẽ đem lại được nhiều lợi ích cho chư tôn giả và quý Phật tử.
I hope that the content of this sutta will be beneficial to all the monks and nuns and all the Dhamma friends who are listening here.
Lời cuối cùng xin thành tâm cầu nguyện oai lực của Đức Phật gia hộ cho tất cả chúng ta sớm giải thoát giác ngộ.
And finally, I wish that by the power of the Buddha, may you all be well and maybe you realize the truth.
Chân thành cảm ơn chư tôn đức tăng ni và quý Phật tử đã lắng nghe.
And thank you so much for your kind listening.
Cầu nguyện Tam Bảo gia hộ cho chư vị an lạc lâu dài.
May the Triple Gem bless you to be peaceful and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sư thúc mấy em đoàn Mùa Lân rồi xin quy y là làm ở đây lắm hả? Sister, the group of the lion dance now under the sacred Bodhi tree, they would like to take refuge in the Triple Gem. So we take permission because we think we have 15 minutes left for our venerable time. So should please the Sangha please give us some minutes so that our master can give the tree refuge to the group of the lion dancers. Yes. Hả? Chắc đỏ đi được cái lên đây thì đóng mấy em thì quy ở đó mà xích lên gần hàng 2, hàng 3 xích lên đây cũng được ha. Rồi.
Con xin đọc Pali nhân sự. Bây giờ ai quy y thì mời mọi người lên đây. Ra trước. Xin lên nữa, xin lên nữa.
Con Quy quay vô đây ha, Quy mà quay vô đây gia đình quay vô đây để sư ông đọc cho mình nghe ha.
Được chưa, đánh lễ chư tăng ba lại.
Đây được xuống đây ha, mọi người quy xuống.
Xong chưa, được chưa?
Có cái chỗ để lại nha nữa.
Để quy y. Dạ, cầu xuống, được.
Hái hang là được rồi, quy xuống đấy.
Được.
Rồi, quy vốn luôn đấy nha. Rồi. Rồi xin mời đại chúng tất cả vì quy muốn quy y đặt lễ tam bảo ba lạy. Đọc theo sự hướng dẫn của chủ trì.
Đọc nha. Mayan phante Tisarane nasaha Panchasilang Dhammang yachami Atnagathang gata Silang de thame phante Dutiyambi Mayan phante Tisrane nasaha
Panchasilang Dhammang Yachama Atthāgatang Gatoa Anugahang Gatoa Silang Detha Me Phante Tati Yambi Mayan Phante Tisarane Nasaha Panchasilang Dhammang Yachama Anugahang Katoa Silang Detha Me Phante.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Đọc lời theo anh 3 lần nha.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Tisaranagahanang paripunnang.
Amma phante.
Lại suốt lại.
Panatipata.
Panatipata.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikkhapadang.
Sikkhapadang.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Adinnādana.
Adinnādana.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikkhapadang.
Sikkhapadang.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Abrahmacharya.
Abrahmacharya.
Sorry. Kame sumikshacara.
Kame sumichachara.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikkhapadang.
Sikkhapadang.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Musavada.
Musavada.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikkhapadang.
Sikkhapadang.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Sumeracha.
Sumeraja.
Chappamadatthana.
Chappamadatthana.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikkhapadang.
Sikkhapadang.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Lại xuống đi. Qua lại.
Lát nữa là mấy em gửi cái danh sách lên rồi sư ông nhờ sư cô đặt Phật danh cho mấy em, cho nên là nhờ chủ trưởng đoàn ha, danh sách là mấy cái hôm nào về có danh sách đây rồi. Dạ thế sư thúc có sẵn danh sách đây, sư thúc đặtให้con đặt. Dạ. Giác là lấy chữ đâu ra chữ giác, con sau đó là đặt vào. Vì hôm nay á, quý vị về về chỗ đất Phật, ngay chỗ cội Bồ Đề là giác, cho nên sư ông đặt quý vị là bắt đầu bằng chữ giác và sau đó là thêm một chữ thôi. Ví dụ như giờ đây đầu tiên là Lê Yến Quyên hả, rồi đến Huỳnh Lê Vi hả, ví dụ. Rồi thì như vậy có chữ giác rồi thì sau này có thể là về tới khách sạn là nhờ sư ông đặt luôn đi, bởi vì dạ thôi, theo lát nữa trí cầm về ha, rồi nhờ sư ông đặt cái trong vòng 5 phút là xong thôi, không sao. Dạ xong rồi, dạ. So the ceremony of taking refuge is finished, and I think that our mission is completed, and we would like to share give the space for Venerable Ajahn Amaro for the next.
I'm very sorry for inconvenience for all of you.
On behalf of the International Tipitaka Chanting Council and all great devotees, we are very honored to have heard the Most Venerable from Vietnam deliver a beautiful sermon on the Dhammachakra Sutta and very practical advice about how to enter into the path of the Dhamma. So we are very blessed to hear your words and your understanding. We are also very lucky to have this on live so that those of you who could not be here can be watching the Dhamma talks being streamed under this sacred Bodhi tree. Thank you again to Bhikkhuni Liu Phap from Vietnam to do the translation. And very beautiful to know that all of you from the lion dance took the 5 precepts under the sacred Bodhi tree. Now this concludes the first part of this evening's Dhamma talk. Thank you again, Most Venerable.
Đại diện ban tổ chức cô Quảng Mô đã tỏ lòng tri ân đến Ngài Hòa Thượng đã có một thời pháp rất là thiết thực. Đặc biệt là Ngài đã chỉ dạy cách làm sao để áp dụng bát chánh đạo vào trong đời sống hàng ngày và giúp cho mọi người thấy ra được 3 sự thật của các pháp. Và cô cũng nói rằng là rất may mắn buổi thuyết pháp này đã được truyền hình trực tiếp online để những người ở xa vẫn có thể theo học được. Và cô cũng rất là hoan hỷ khi thấy các em ở trong đội Múa Lân đã phát tâm quy y Tam Bảo ngay dưới cội Bồ Đề này. Và một lần nữa xin thay mặt cho ban tổ chức xin tri ân Ngài Hòa Thượng đã từ bi thuyết thời pháp cho đại chúng được lời lạc, và xin đảnh lễ tri ân Ngài, kính chúc Ngài luôn được thân tâm an lạc. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Xin mời đại chúng đảnh lễ Ngài Hòa Thượng 3 lạy. Kính thỉnh Ngài về nghỉ.
It is our great honor to invite the Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro from Amravati, the United Kingdom, from the Thai forest tradition, to be our next Dhamma speaker. And so if we may ask the Most Venerable to please join the seat. Very nice to see you, Ajahn Achalo. Please take your seats and please continue to join us. This will be in English, and Venerable Ajahn Amaro, we spoke earlier today under the Bodhi tree, and since this is being recorded, you will have a chance to translate this into your various language. So this Dhamma talk will be delivered in English. I'm very blessed personally to have met Venerable Ajahn Amaro a few times now, and personally I've been very inspired by the teachings of Ajahn Chah from the Forest Thai tradition, and so it is with great honor that he is our keynote speaker, as you know, yesterday, and also to have the chance for him to deliver the first Dhamma talk under the sacred Bodhi tree. The teachings from this tradition of the Thai forest tradition is simple and yet so profound. And so may we listen to these great teachings as a way to enter into the path of the Dhamma, especially as we are reciting the very precious words of the Buddha in Pali over the coming 10 days. And so I requested if Venerable Ajahn Amaro could give some insights into what we are reciting for us to become more wise as we just recite, but maybe these words can enter into our heart, into a way for us to really understand and see the profound nature of the Dhamma. So with this, I welcome the Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro, who is the abbot of the Amravati in United Kingdom. Please welcome.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. I'm very honored once again to be invited to offer some Dhamma reflections on this occasion of the 17th Tipitaka recitation ceremony. As people know, this year the Sutta Pitaka is being completed, and the last two books that are being recited of the Khuddaka Nikaya, the short collections are the Melinda Panha, the questions of King Melinda, and the Petako Padesa, which means the illustration of the baskets. And I felt it was very appropriate that the Venerable Elder from Vietnam gave a teaching on the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. I don't pretend to be very familiar with the Petako Padesa, but it was a teaching that is attributed to the Venerable Mahakachana, who was the one who was most gifted at explaining in detail teachings of the Lord Buddha given in brief. And it's a summary of the way to read and to understand the Tipitaka, and the framework for the Petako Padesa is the Four Noble Truths. So as the second part of this gathering will be reciting that particular collection, then there'll be a lot of references to dukkha, dukkha samudaya, dukkha nirodha, and dukkha nirodha gamani patipada, the path leading to the ending of suffering. So I thought this evening I would focus on the Melinda Panha, the questions of King Melinda, as it's an extremely rich and very multifaceted collection of teachings. It is a very rich resource indeed, and so I won't try and cover the whole thing, but I thought I would focus this evening on a particular set of teachings about Nibbana. Again, as the Venerable was mentioning just a few moments ago, that Nibbana is the goal of the practice for those of us in the Southern Buddhist tradition. This is clearly our aim in entering into the way of practice of the Lord Buddha, to realize Nibbana, to embody that quality of the great peace of the heart that comes with full understanding, full enlightenment. This is the goal. So I thought I would select some of the teachings from the Melinda Panha that relate particularly to Nibbana. And I was doing some homework for this. We don't usually do commentaries on scriptures, and do far more. Our tradition is that of spontaneously speaking from our own experience, but I brought my glasses and my crib sheet, since I did some reading up on these particular sections of the Melinda Panha, and it's in the 8th chapter. In this Roman edition, you'll find these particular teachings beginning on page 243, and it's sections I think 10, 11 and 12 of chapter 8 that relate to Nibbana. So it'll probably be in 5 or 6 days' time that you get to that. So King Melinda, for those of you who don't know, this was a king who ruled in northeast India. He was born about 300 years after the Buddha. So he was born in about 180 before the Common Era. He was born in what is now Bagram in Afghanistan, but he was from Greek ancestry. He was one of the descendants of the invasion from Alexander, sometimes known as Alexander the Great, but if you come from Iran, he's known as Alexander the Accursed. They see him differently than the Greeks do. But maybe those of us who are reciting today, reading from the first part of the Melinda Panha, you might have noticed the word Yonika a few times. The word Yonika means Greek, like Ionian, Ionia, is where is related to the Pali word Yonika. So it's describing people who came from that country. So King Melinda then ruled from about 163 before the Common Era to about 150 for about 13 years. And he obviously had a very inquisitive mind. He wanted to understand what was the religion of the area. And the dialogues that form the Melinda Panha are discussions between King Melinda and the Venerable Nagasena, who was obviously a very gifted, wise and erudite monk and a brilliant teacher and giver of similes and explanations, of which I'll share a few with you this evening. So also the first part of the Melinda Panha, it talks about some of the past life experiences or the origins of King Melinda and Venerable Nagasena, and then the teachings begin properly. So of the teachings I thought I would share with you, as I said, they begin about page 243 in this volume. So it's in the version that I was referring to. They are beginning at section 315, and it starts off with King Melinda asking Venerable Nagasena, "Is it possible to make clear the form, figure, age, dimensions of Nibbana, either by illustration or reason, or by a cause or by a method?" To which the Venerable Nagasena says, "No, it's impossible." So the king says, "Well, if that's impossible, then surely Nibbana can't exist, because if it was real, if it existed, then there must have some form, some kind of way of describing it." And so he said, if Nibbana was real, it should be possible. And so then the Venerable Nagasena then responds by saying, "Great king, considering the great ocean, is it possible to calculate how much water there is in the great ocean, or how many creatures live in the great ocean?" And the king says, "No, it's impossible. It can't be calculated. It can't be. There's no way of describing that." And then Nagasena says, "Well, similarly, even though the great ocean exists and we know it's there, we can't calculate just how much water is there or how many creatures live within it." And then Venerable Nagasena goes on to say, "But even if there was someone with great psychic powers who could tell you exactly how much water there is in the great ocean and exactly how many creatures and of what types, you could do that for the ocean, but you couldn't do that for Nibbana." That it really is impossible. So that one of the aspects of Nibbana is it is unimaginable. The imagination can't describe what that quality is. So then, and another part of the teachings, verse or section 326, then King Melinda says, "Where is Nibbana located?" And then the Venerable Nagasena responds, "The region does not exist where Nibbana is located." To which the king says, "Well, therefore there is no Nibbana." And then Venerable Nagasena, who's obviously extremely patient as well, he said, "Well, where is fire located?" So we know fire exists, but you can't say where fire is, but if you rub two sticks together anywhere on the planet, then fire will appear. So fire is unlocated, but yet it is real. And so then King Melinda was convinced by that. So they obviously had a very rich and interesting set of dialogues with each other. So then Venerable King Melinda then asked the Venerable, "So, okay, it's unlocated, Nibbana is unlocated, but is there a place where a person should stand in order to realize Nibbana?" And you might, you might think, well, of course, if Nibbana is unlocated, how would it? What position should someone take? How would that relate to that? But interestingly, Venerable Nagasena says, yes, there is, and it is in sila, in virtue, virtuous conduct. That is where a being must stand. They must position themselves in the mode of sila in order to realize Nibbana. So I felt that was a particularly important point to share and explore this evening. You'll notice on this beautiful rupa of the Maitreya Bodhisattva, that has been offered and has just arrived here. As with many, many Buddha images, the base is formed into a lotus flower, the petals of a lotus. And so it's very, very common that a Buddha image is sitting on the lotus. And right there is the symbol of enlightenment based upon virtue. The lotus flower represents purity of conduct, purity of heart. And so the Buddha sitting on the lotus flower is the symbol of the seat of enlightenment in the world, the basis of enlightenment in the world. So I feel, particularly in terms of practical teachings, Sister Wang Mo was asking for, I feel this is an extremely important area to consider, because both here in India and in the Western world, frequently people are interested in enlightenment. They want to deal with their problems. We have an intuition that liberation is possible, enlightenment is possible, and so we find various resources. We read books or watch films or Dhamma talks on YouTube of gurus, or we go to meetings and retreats and teachings. And there are many, many different spiritual teachings that promise enlightenment and freedom and a great, say, peace of heart. And some, and very commonly, the ones that are interesting or are popular are ones that involve a lot of fun and not much restraint, along with the enlightenment. So sex, drugs, rock and roll, and enlightenment is, in the West, that's how you put it. But this is, I feel, a big issue, not just in the West, but in Asia as well, because speaking as one who speaks a lot, it's easy to talk. It's easy to present a philosophy or an idea, a set of methodologies, and it can be you can be really convincing. You can present a program, a philosophy, and it all holds together very logically. It can be very attractive. You can tell a great story, and people say, "Oh wow, how marvelous, how wonderful," and the appeal can be great. Or perhaps the teacher, the person in the teaching seat, has a lot of charisma. They're very powerful personality, or they speak very well. They tell really good stories, and or maybe they even have some shakti. And can kind of zap you and think, oh my goodness, I just sat near Guruji and I felt this tingling in my forehead. And so, wow, he must be totally enlightened. And so then the lack of foundation in sila can, even though, and I'm speaking in very general terms, those methods of spiritual practice and training, they can have some kind of a value, and sometimes the insights that are gained in contact with such teachers and teachings can be valuable, but they can get so easily mixed up with unskillful behavior, with behavior that's abusive of other people's lives, their property, their bodies, abusive of people's resources, taking advantage. Sometimes these very powerful teachers, they promise enlightenment, but it costs a lot of dollars, rupees, euros and pounds. That it comes with a great expense, and so that the foundation of Buddha Dhamma in virtue, I feel this is something that is extremely important to bear in mind. I lived in California for about 15, 20 years, so there's this very large range of inspiring and interesting, fascinating gurus and teachers, some of whom I met. And I found that it was really the ones who had a foundation in virtue, who are really honest, straightforward. They weren't trying to take advantage of the people who drew close to them. They were sincerely looking to benefit the people around them, and also there was a high quality of restraint and honesty in speech and in social behavior, sexual restraint in terms of sexual relations. And those people were, I found very inspiring and lovely to be around, whether they were Buddhists or Hindus or had no particular spiritual affiliation. I was always glad and impressed to be around such people. But there's also quite quite a range of those who behave very unskillfully, and so that I feel it's very helpful and particularly clear in the Pali teachings that enlightenment involves moral behavior. That you can't really divide samma sati, right mindfulness, from sila, from samma vaca, samma kamanto, samma achivo, from right speech, right action, right livelihood. They're a part of a unit, and there's a lot of mindfulness trainings, not just talking in terms of unscrupulous gurus, but just the mindfulness trainings that are around the world that are presented free from any kind of ethical element. That there's no sense of guidance about how one should behave in terms of speech and action, and I feel that that's a sadness. And I've had a number of dialogues with people who are very prominent teachers of mindfulness, people like John Kabat-Zinn and others who are very active and do a great deal of good in the world. But I do feel that it's one of the things that are lacking in the presentation of mindfulness programs in the world, that the element of sila, just simply being honest in your speech, being restrained in your behavior, being harmless, and refraining from intoxicants. That kind of encouragement as part of mindfulness training would be as a conscious and promoted part of mindfulness practices, would be a great blessing for individuals and for society. And yesterday we were asking about Buddhism's role in terms of world peace. So my own little program or wish is to introduce the sila element into the many popular and very useful mindfulness trainings around the world. There's a couple of teachings, not just in the Melinda Panha, that I like to share on this respect, where it's in the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses, Book of the Nines, suttas number 7 and 8 in the Book of the Nines. And the Buddha is talking to two different wanderers, different sannyasins that he's met. One is called Suttava and the other is called Sajja. And they're asking about the nature of enlightenment, or the behavior of an enlightened person. And in these little dialogues, the Buddha says to Suttava, he says, one who is enlightened, an Arahant, cannot deliberately take the life of another living being. It's impossible. They can't do it. Like the hand cannot move to squash the mosquito. The action can't be taken. It's not forbidden as a sort of behavior that's controlled. It's like, no, the hand won't move to deliberately take life. And an Arahant cannot take what is not given. An Arahant cannot steal. It's in their intrinsic nature. The enlightened mind can't take what is not given. Can't, abuse the sense of ownership that people have for property. An enlightened being is completely uninterested in any kind of sexual activity. The enlightened being will not engage in sexual activity. That's intrinsic to the state of enlightenment is a disengagement with any kind of sexual behavior with any other being. And I realized that in the Northern Buddhist tradition there's quite a number of enlightened yogis who are family people. So there's a bit of a disparity I recognize there. But this is, as it says in the Pali Canon, that's I'm just sharing the words of the Lord Buddha in this respect, that an enlightened being is unable to engage in any kind of sexual behavior. It's just not interesting and not appealing in any way, shape or form. An enlightened being cannot tell a lie. The tongue cannot form the words of an untruth. And interestingly, so those of you who are just following the ceremony of the 5 precepts, the dragon dancers taking the 5 precepts, so those first four match quite closely. The third one, the Venerable mistook and said Abrahmacharya accidentally, and then stopped himself. That's the precept for celibacy, so that rather than the dragon dancers taking on celibacy, taking on the 5 precepts of restraint and proper behavior with respect to sexual conduct. So the first 4 match the first 4 of the 8 precepts, the third one being Abrahmacharya. But instead of the 5th precept about intoxicants, very interestingly, when the Buddha talks to these 2 wanderers, to Suttava and Sajja, he says an enlightened being cannot lay up a store. They won't keep things for tomorrow. They won't sort of take the food that's been given to them and keep it, or have an extra pair of socks, or to be ready to live with what the day offers, what comes naturally, what appears, and then tomorrow let it take care of itself. So and that's an interesting theme to contemplate. I find that one who is enlightened is not doing a lot of planning for tomorrow, but just living fully for today. So that I feel that those are helpful teachings to understand that. So in a way, an Arahant is not practicing restraint. It's the natural disposition of their own pure heart, is that they're not restraining themselves to not kill living beings like mosquitoes or an ant, but rather there's nothing in them that could do that. They're not restraining themselves from telling a lie. There's nothing in them that could deliberately lie. And so I feel that's a helpful understanding of how sila and enlightenment, the realization of nibbana, work together. A last little piece I'll share on that is when the Buddha established the 8 precepts on the moon days to establish a training form or a form of intensified spiritual practice for the lay community. Again, the Buddha drew upon the nature of the enlightened mind. And again, you can find this, the Uposatha Sutta. It's in a number of places, but you can find it in the Book of the Threes in the Anguttara Nikaya, Sutta number 70. And the Buddha is reflecting. He said, all their lives, Arahants never deliberately take the life of another living being. Wouldn't it be useful on the moon days, on the Uposatha, for the lay people to adopt this behavior? Then they will be living as the Arahants do, and that will be for their long-lasting welfare and happiness. And then similarly for not taking what is not given, not engaging in sexual activity, not lying, not using intoxicants, and then the last 3, not eating only eating in one time of the day, not seeking entertainment and distraction and adornment, and then using a simple sleeping place. This is the natural behavior of the Arahants, that they only eat in one part of the day. They never seek distraction or entertainment. They never use intoxicants. And by adopting those behaviors, then a lay person is living as the Arahants do. And then it's for the long-lasting welfare and happiness, not just because it's some kind of intrinsic good karma, but rather by adopting that behavior, then you see the good effects. Not having told a lie all day, you don't have to regret having told a lie. Not having engaged in sexual activity, not flirting with people or engaging with others, there's a peacefulness that comes with that. Not killing anything, you don't have any regret. There's no remorse for having taken the life of another living being. And so that, and so forth, that you can see, you can know, you can feel for yourself the benefits of that restrained behavior. So then adopting the behavior helps you to, in a way, recognize your own pure heart's inclination, that you're able to tap into your own pure heart, the purest and most, noble inclinations of your own citta, and then recognize, well, this is really good. I like to feel this way. Isn't it wonderful to not feel remorse? Isn't it nice to be able to meditate in the evening without a full stomach? so we can see the benefits of that for ourselves. So, to continue. So, to continue with the other teachings from the Melinda Panha. So then, in another earlier section of this same group in chapter 10, chapter 11, and chapter 12 of what's those sections of chapter 8, and in my copy, my source of the Melinda Panha sections or verses 315 to 322. So then the king says, so I recognize that Nibbana is a complete freedom from suffering. It is unalloyed bliss, absolutely pure bliss. But are there any other qualities that Nibbana has? Are there ways to describe those qualities? And the Venerable Nagasena goes into this marvelous list of 15 different similes for the qualities of Nibbana. So I thought I would share these with you. Firstly, a lotus is untouched by water. Nibbana is untouched by the defilements, by kilesa. Just as water is cool and quenches fever, Nibbana quenches the fever of the kilesas, the defilements. Just as water subdues thirst, Nibbana subdues the thirst of the three kinds of desire: kama tanha, sense desire; bhava tanha, the desire to become; and vibhava tanha, the desire to get rid of. And I was very interested to listen to the Venerable's explanations about the three kinds of desire. My own teacher, Ajahn Sumedho, generally focused on much more close-to-home qualities. Sense desire is the desire for pleasant sensual experiences, but bhava tanha he would bring much more into our everyday scope of our everyday life. So bhava tanha is getting lost in ambition, wanting to be someone, wanting to be recognized, wanting to have some kind of identified being. The habit of the mind of getting lost in expectations, leaning into the next thing. So far more a natural everyday thing, not so much about wanting to be reborn in high states of absorption, but bhava, the desire to become. I want to be something, I want to be somebody, or I am somebody. That I am this person, don't you know who I am? That's bhava tanha plus, I would say, those of us who've had that experience. And then vibhava tanha, again, Ajahn Sumedho would explain in a much more relatable, tangible way as the wanting to not feel. Those of us who've drunk a lot of alcohol in the past, or sought distraction, or just slept a lot, just zoning out. Vibhava tanha is the desire to not feel, to switch off, to be annihilated, to just zone out, to disconnect. And so these are I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with the Venerable who was speaking earlier, but these are other aspects of these three kinds of fever, these three kinds of desire that are, say, much more familiar to us. I've had enough. I'm out of here. I'm done. Vibhava tanha. We're like, oh yes, now I'm getting somewhere. Bhava tanha. These are familiar states, particularly in terms of meditation. But that's a theme for a whole Dhamma talk in itself. So to continue, the medicine is the refuge of beings suffering from being poisoned. Nibbana is the refuge of beings poisoned by the defilements, by kilesa. Medicine puts an end to all ills, physical ills. Nibbana puts an end to all dukkha. Just as the ocean is vast and not filled up by the rivers that flow into it, Nibbana is measureless, endless. It can't be reckoned in terms of space or dimensions. and it can't be filled up by all of the beings who realize Nibbana do not fill it up, so there's no room for any more enlightened beings. The ocean blossoms with flowers of waves. Nibbana blossoms with the flowers of purity, of knowledge, and of deliverance. Just as food is the support of life, Nibbana is the support of life, because it destroys old age, sickness, and death. Just as food is the source of beauty, Nibbana is the source of beauty, the beauty of sila, of virtue. Just as space is not produced, doesn't age, doesn't die, cannot be handled, space can't be carried off by thieves, it rests on nothing, is the pathway of birds, and offers no obstacles, and is endless, so too, Nibbana is not produced, it doesn't age, doesn't die, cannot be handled, cannot be carried off by thieves, it rests on nothing, is the pathway of the noble ones, and presents no obstacles, and is endless. Then just as the wish-fulfilling gem, the Jintamani, brings a smile of satisfaction, so too Nibbana brings a smile of satisfaction. This is why also almost every Buddha Rupa that you will see, there's a gentle smile, there's the natural expression of Buddhas is that of delight, of enjoyment, so the smile of satisfaction. And then the last ones are about mountain peaks. Just as a mountain peak is lofty, Nibbana is also lofty, high up. Just as a mountain peak is immovable, Nibbana is immovable. Just as a mountain peak is difficult to ascend, Nibbana is also difficult to ascend. And last one, just as seeds do not germinate on the mountain peak, so too the seeds of kilesa, of the defilements, do not germinate in Nibbana. So there's a lot there. There's a great deal there. But I wanted to share with you some of the richness of the just as I wanted to share with you some of the material that we're reciting. I'm not sure what the other sound is coming from, but so the last of the teachings from the text I thought I would share with you is verse number 323. It begins, that's this section. It says, Nibbana is neither past, future, or present. It is neither produced, nor not produced, nor to be produced. Yet it is real and may be realized. So this is about also about going back to how Nibbana is not a place, even though you can't say where Nibbana is, still it is real. So I thought I would talk a little bit more about that. Nibbana is not a place; it's unlocated, and I realize this is a little bit of a subtle aspect of the teachings, but one that I feel is very important and something that was very central to our great master, the late Venerable Ajahn Chah, would focus upon in his teaching, whether to lay people or to monastics. And when from a scripture to have you say Venerable Nagasena saying Nibbana is not a place, and that we can hear it in the teaching. And I think yesterday I was saying how that we can have strange ideas about Nibbana, that it's some kind of super heaven somewhere else, or it's some kind of a philosophical we have a philosophical idea about Nibbana, but along with the teaching that Ajahn Chah gave, that Nibbana is the reality of non-grasping, there were other ways that he approached this area of understanding and try to help people to really put the teachings into practice and make a difference in one's life. So in terms of our habitual ways of thinking, for most people, we think in terms of self-view. I am this person. Today is December the 3rd. It's just after 8:05 in the evening. We're in Bodh Gaya, we're under the sacred Bodhi tree. I'm sitting here talking to you. You're there listening to me, I hope. And that's, time is passing, I'm here, you're there. And we take these perceptions to be absolute realities. And so as long as the mind takes three-dimensional space, time, and individuality as absolute truths, the realization of Nibbana is impossible. We might be virtuous, that's where we're standing in the right place, maybe. But if there is that sense of I am the body, I'm the personality, I exist here, this is my name, this is how old I am, this is my nationality, and this is my monastery, my teacher, my allegiance. If that is all taken to be absolutely true, liberation is impossible. Self-view is the first of the fetters, the sangyojana. So that's the first obstacle to enlightenment, is that I am the body, I'm the personality, sakkaya ditthi. So one of the ways that Venerable Ajahn Chah tried to help people to see that habit of self-view was to get them to reflect upon non-locality, or he would call it no abiding. And I'm hoping that most people can understand the English that I'm using, and it's all been recorded, and nowadays there's lots of amenities to bring translations, so I hope this all gets through well enough. So when people would come to visit Venerable Ajahn Chah, he liked to test people out, or to get people thinking, to not just people to come along and pay respects and make some offerings and then go away. He would like to engage with people, rather like King Melinda and Nagasena. He liked to get a dialogue going. So sometimes when people would come to visit, he'd say, if you can't go forward and you can't go back and you can't stand still, where do you go? People would say, oh, do you climb a tree? Dig a hole? Go sideways? He said, no, you can't go sideways. You can't dig a hole. There aren't any trees, and there are no balloons either. So you can't go forward, you can't go back, you can't go up, you can't go down, you can't go sideways. Where can you go? And he would act in a kind of playful dialogue. He would act on this initiative to get people talking, to get people thinking. And eventually, most people would give up and say, Lumpur, I don't understand. Please explain. Please explain. And he would say, that's not what he would say, but he would say, as long as we conceive reality in terms of self and time and location, then liberation is impossible. It's only if you let go of self-view, you let go of time, you let go of place. The Dhamma is akaliko, it's timeless. The Dhamma is not located, it is no place. There's no where you will find the Dhamma begins and the Dhamma is found up to this point and not found beyond it. Location doesn't apply in the realm of the mind. If you think about it, space and place only applies in the world of three-dimensional space, in the world of rupa khandha. The nama khandhas don't really have any relationship to space. I can say, where does my sanya end and yours begin? Doesn't apply. We can say, oh, I'm here, the dog is there, the camera's there, the sacred Bodhi tree is behind me. In the realm of rupa khandha, yes, position, place applies, but in the realm of mind, where is the mind? Where does not apply? So this is the kind of thing that Luang Por Chah was trying to get people to see, that only if you let go of the identification with personality, with time, with place, then freedom is possible. The very last advice that he gave to Venerable Ajahn Sumedho, when Venerable Ajahn Chah knew his health was getting very poor, it was decaying quite rapidly, and he sent a letter to Ajahn Sumedho in the summer of 1981. I was there when he received it at Chitta Viveka Monastery in Sussex, in England, and he was very surprised to get this letter, because Ajahn Chah had never written to him before, and he said in this letter, it was very brief, and it was one of the Western monks had taken dictation from Ajahn Chah, and it began by saying, "You're never going to believe this, Ajahn Sumedho, but Luang Por had me take dictation this morning." So this is his message, and he said, whenever you have feelings of love or hate for anything whatsoever, these will be your aids and partners in building paramita. The Buddha Dhamma is not to be found in moving forwards, nor in moving backwards, nor in standing still. This, Sumedho, is your place of non-abiding. So in these teachings of non-locality, that Nibbana is not a place, I feel that was the very last message from Ajahn Chah to his chief Western disciple. And you'd think, well, my life is fading, my health is going, I've got a little opportunity to send some instructions to my beloved and trusted eldest son doing his pioneer work in a new land. And you'd think he'd come up with a long list of do this, do this, do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But this was the one instruction. The Buddha Dhamma is not to be found in moving forwards, nor in moving backwards, nor in standing still. This is your place of non-abiding. So as soon as the mind lets go, does not cling to identity, to our plans, our opinions, our emotions, our moods, our preferences, to the place where we are, to our name, to our age, to our nationality, to our status, all of these things, if the mind lets go of that quality of grasping, then there is that's the way to embody Buddha Dhamma, to genuinely not just hear Dhamma or practice Dhamma to awaken to Dhamma, but to embody the Dhamma. And again, Venerable Ajahn Chah would talk in this way. He'd say, there's hearing Dhamma, understanding Dhamma, practicing Dhamma, realizing Dhamma, but at the end of the process is being Dhamma. And that embodiment of that reality, that's the potential that we all have. But if it's I'm going to be Dhamma, that's what I am. The real me is the Dhamma, then it... Incredible India. So that letting go, there's a wakefulness. The mind is awake, it's aware, and it knows the personal, it knows the body, knows the personality, knows our lists of things to do, it knows our responsibilities, our schedules, evening of the 3rd, 7:30, Dhamma talk. I sit on about 20 different committees, so I'm a Buddhist monk, but I have a lot of time spent in reading agendas and minutes and sitting in in meetings with different people. But if we take this principle to heart, letting go of identity, of attachment to the body, the personality, our story, our opinions, our emotions, our loves, our hates, we let go of all of those bhavas, those becomings, those ways that the mind likes to take root, then we do indeed realize that great quality of Nibbana. There is the realization and embodiment of Nibbana. The heart knows its own nature as Dhamma, and the result of that realization is the great peace of Nibbana. Another little scriptural teaching. The clock is behind me, so just to keep an eye on the time. Another of the scriptural teachings that I like to quote, that I feel is very, very relevant in this, because people then it's natural to then ask, well, if I'm not the body, I'm not the personality, I'm not this sense of I, what am I? Yeah. Something is real. There's definitely some reality here at the center. But if I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I'm not old, I'm not young, I'm not British, not American, not Indian, not a human, what am I? And so that if our reference point is the ego, then that's a disaster. It's like, we feel like I'm annihilated, I don't exist, or I'm nothing. And if we take the ego and self-view as the measure or the reference point, then that loss of ego, that emptiness, feels like a disaster. It's painful, it's shocking, it's disorienting. And I remember when I was a teenager, I had an experience of that, and it was very, very disturbing. Like looking in a mirror, seeing my face, and it was my face, but there was no me in it. It was hard to describe, but it was there was no way I could get myself into that image that was looking out from the mirror. And so if I'm not that, then what am I? So I was a student at that time, 19 years old, and I was just very, very shaken, very confused. When I came across the Buddha's teaching a couple of years later, then I realized, that was actually quite good. Little did I know. So if we don't take the ego and self-view as a reference point, then when the heart lets go of those standard ways of identifying who and what we are, then what remains is the brightness of awareness, of that awakened, aware quality of the citta. And that the word vijja, opposite of avijja, ignorance. Vijja is a good Pali word to use for that awakened, aware quality. The teaching I like to quote in this respect is from another dialogue, not between King Melinda and Nagasena, but between the Lord Buddha and Vacchagotta, who was like King Melinda was a curious and lively-minded person. He liked to come to the Buddha and ask many, many questions, and had as many interesting and lively dialogues between the Lord Buddha and Vacchagotta. And in one of these dialogues, Vacchagotta asks the Buddha, what happens to an enlightened being at the end of their life? When the body dies, where do they reappear? And the Buddha says, reappear does not apply, Vaccha. Then Vacchagotta says, well, do they not reappear? And the Buddha replies, does not reappear, that doesn't apply either. And then, being an Indian philosopher, Vacchagotta then says, okay, do they both reappear and not reappear? The Buddha said, no, both reappear and not reappear, that doesn't apply. And then the fourth one, do they neither reappear nor not reappear? So they must cover every angle. Every possibility seems to have been covered. And the Buddha said, that doesn't apply either. And so Vacchagotta says, I'm confused, Venerable Sir, because one of these possibilities must represent the reality. And the Buddha says, no, because the way you ask the question presumes a reality that does not exist. So, Vaccha, if we had a little fire burning here made of grass and sticks, and the fire went out, and I asked you the question, Vaccha, where did the fire go? North, south, east, or west? What would you say? He said, well, I'd say the question doesn't apply, sir, because it didn't go in any direction, it just went out. Exactly. Vaccha. So you're asking the question in a way that presumes a reality that doesn't exist. Then he comes on to the part of the teaching that I particularly want to share with everyone this evening. So then the Buddha says, the Tathagata, and that the word Tathagata is a word seemingly the Buddha invented to refer to himself. It literally means thus come or thus gone, gone to suchness or come to suchness. So, and we can take the word Tathagata in this respect to represent the enlightened mind. And I would say whether it refers to the Lord Buddha as an individual who walked and talked 2,600 years ago, or the enlightened mind that is the fundamental nature of all these jittas gathered here, that potential of enlightenment is there in every jitta, I would say. So the awake, aware quality of the heart, the jitta. Then the Buddha explains, says, that material form whereby one who is trying to describe the Tathagata would describe him, that's been cut off at the root, made like a palm tree stump, deprived of the conditions for existence, and is no more subject to arising in the future. That feeling, the Vedana, perception, sanya, sankhara, mental formations, vijnana, sense consciousness, discriminative consciousness, that one would use or would refer to describe the Tathagata, those have all been cut off, made like a palm stump. The bridge is down, there's no connection. That has all been completely let go of. The five khandhas, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, again as the Venerable was describing, they've all been completely let go of. There's no identification or attachment by the Tathagata for the five khandhas. And then he goes on to say that Tathagata is liberated from being reckoned, from being measured in terms of those five khandhas, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. He is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. So this is very potent teaching to me, and I feel this is really the heart of vipassana meditation, insight meditation practice that, again, the former president of India was speaking so eloquently about yesterday. The heart of vipassana is establishing that awakened awareness that knows the five khandhas, sees them arising and passing away, and which has completely let go of them. The bridge is down, there's no connection, cut off like a palm tree stump, deprived of the conditions for existence, and no longer subject to arising in the future. So, but in that last part of the Buddha's comments, he says, the Tathagata, he is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. So there's a quality there, and this is a dialogue between the Buddha and Vacchagotta. They're sitting face to face, talking to each other, and so he's saying that the Tathagata has completely let go of any identification with the five khandhas, but there is this. There is a quality, there's a presence of that suchness that is apparent, that is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. So that I feel is a very beautiful, poetic and accurate way of representing the quality of awareness. Again, comparing it to the ocean, as Venerable Nagasena does in those dialogues, that when we stand by the seashore, the sense of being by the sea is vast, as it goes off to the horizon and disappears beyond our vision. There's a sense of power. It's enormous, and there's this movement of the water. There's the sense of mystery. You can't see all the beings underneath the surface. So the Lord Buddha, using that image of the nature of the Tathagata, the nature of the awake citta, the awake aware quality of the heart, is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. So that when the heart is free of obscurations, when it is fully awake and aware, that which knows the person, not to encourage us to just identify with the I am immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean, that's the real me, then it's just an idea that we're hanging on to. The practice of vipassana and the training of the heart is about embodying that quality of awareness that is indeed vast, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. It's not just the words that refer to it, but it is that quality. Like the word water is not water, it's a word. This stuff in this bottle, this is water. The word water is not water, it's a word. So to say unfathomable, immeasurable, like the great ocean, those are words, but they're referring to that quality of the citta. And maybe one last thing to share on this that I think is interesting and again relates to non-locality or that non-abiding. So those words of Venerable Ajahn Chah, when he said you can't go forward, you can't go back, you can't stand still, it's closely related to a passage from the Udana, the inspired utterances of the Lord Buddha in chapter 8 of the Udana, where the Buddha says, there is that ayatana, that sphere of being, where there is no sun, no moon, no stars, no coming, no going, no standing still, no dying, no reappearance. And this, I tell you, is the end of suffering. That's a paraphrase. And so that in that passage, that the Buddha's talking about the unconditioned, there is that ayatana. There is the unborn, the unoriginated, the uncreated, the unformed. In another sutta very close by, again in chapter 8 of the Udana, if there was not the unborn, the unoriginated, the uncreated, the unformed, then liberation from the formed, the originated, the created, the born would not be possible. But because there is the unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, unformed, therefore liberation from the created, the formed, the born, the conditioned is possible. So in those teachings, the word to be that the Buddha uses, that there is the unborn, atti bhikkhave ajatang abhutang akatang asankatang. That the verb atti is used to refer to that quality of being that is timeless, that is not connected with birth and death. And so when we say today is the 3rd of December, that is, you'd use the verb hoti, the Pali verb hoti, or I am a human being, manusosi, are you a human being? That is the verb hoti is used to refer to that quality of being. But when it's a timeless quality and a transcendent quality, that there is the unborn, the unoriginated, the uncreated, the unformed, the verb ati is used. So there's a different mode of expression that is used to refer to this transcendent quality. And I would say that if we are, taking these teachings that we find in the Melinda Panha and these other places in the Pali Canon, and then we take the trouble to sit down, to sit, walk, meditate, spend time in holy places like here at under the sacred Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, and we apply ourselves to meditation, and particularly developing the wisdom that comes with vipassana meditation, then these are not just words, these are ways that our lives can be transformed. We can really see what we are in a different way. The change of view can go from a self-centered perspective to a Dhamma-centered perspective, and that makes all the difference in the world, I would suggest. So I offer these words for consideration, and we have a bit of time for some questions and some dialogue. I think there's a microphone that can move around.
Thank you, Venerable. This is a great opportunity for people to ask questions. I'd like to turn it first to the Venerable Monastics, if there are any questions.
Bhante, I would like you to repeat the sentence that Ajahn Chah sent to Ajahn Sumedho in the letter, because I couldn't hear clearly the whole sentence.
Okay.
So could you please repeat?
Whenever you have feelings of love or hate for anything whatsoever, these will be your aids and partners in building paramita. The Buddha Dhamma is not to be found in moving forwards, nor in moving backwards, nor in standing still. This, Sumeto, is your place of non-abiding. That's the whole thing.
Are there any other questions here from the monastic community? If not, then I will turn to the lay community.
There's a hand over here.
Oh, so sorry. Lay, yes. You're welcome to come here.
Thank you so much for your wisdom. And I would like to know if interdependence is connected with all the aspects that you talked about. Interdependence.
Mm-hmm. Interdependence. Well, depends a little bit what you mean with respect to that. One of the the aspects of the experiential world is that things are causally related. Cause and effect is one of the unshakable laws, or the established laws of nature, that things function according to cause and effect. So things are dependent upon each other. They interact. They interrelate. And so so interdependence is one of the principles of nature, of the natural order as we experience it in the world of form and the world of mind, and the conditioned realm of thinking and imagination, emotions and mind states. But Nibbana, or the unconditioned, then that's beyond cause and effect. And another of the ways that Venerable Ajahn Chah would talk about non-abiding, the place of non-abiding, he'd say it's outside of cause and above effect, nok het nil porn. And that's actually the title of one of his books in the Thai language. So that in the if you like, in the ayatana, in the domain of unconditioned, of the transcendent Dhamma, interdependence doesn't apply, because the cause and effect doesn't apply. Past and future don't apply. Here and there doesn't apply. So that all of our usual reference points fall away. So interdependence, interrelatedness, I would say, is very much an aspect of the conditioned realm, the world that we experience through the senses. But in terms of the unconditioned, then it doesn't apply.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Richard, you might have a question. You're coming
He's
forward.
striding purposely forwards.
I know he always has a good question.
So Bhante, it's interesting, there's a kind of tension between mindfulness and Shila, which you did explain, because an Arahant has Shila without any intention. They just are Shila. And I suppose you could say that if you perfect your mindfulness, you perfect your Shila.
Mm-hmm.
So the question really is, why does Shila enhance mindfulness? Because in a way, because Shila involves effort, it is a conditioning of the absolute nature, and so takes you away from it.
If all effort took you away from the absolute reality, right effort couldn't be part of the Eightfold Path.
Yes.
Sama Vayamo. So it's possible to make effort completely free of self-view, And that's, the Buddha was totally enlightened. He put a lot of effort into spreading the Dhamma throughout northeast India and everywhere. So I would say that in a way the principle is embodied in those words of the Buddha establishing the Uposita, the Moonday observance. Like, if they act in this way, then that will be for their long-lasting welfare and happiness. If you refrain from lying and killing, and if you act in a way that's restrained, then again, it's not just because of some automatic creation of good karma, but rather, if you don't tell a lie all day, then your mind is regretting any lies that you've told in the evening. It's a very practical relationship. If you don't do unskillful things, you don't have to regret having done them. It's a very basic kind of psychology. And so that it's by seeing the good results of that behavior, then it creates a positive feedback loop. That's the principle of it. And so they are chosen behaviors initially, just as showing up to the Sri Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya, joining in with this program, it's a choice. But that's part of, I feel, of the genius of the Buddha, is he established these choices that are, and possibilities based very much on ordinary self-centered thinking. Like, I want this is going to be good for me, I will go. And then having gone, having used that pattern of conditioning, it can create the environment whereby the mind can awaken to the unconditioned. So that he called the Eightfold Path the karma that leads to the end of karma, the action that leads to the end of action. So yeah, it's choices, and it can be, again, as the Venerable was speaking earlier, it can be the mundane Eightfold Path. Yeah, it can be wrapped up in self-view and personal wishes, but the extraordinary chemistry of it is that say, you can start off with those self-centered and mundane attitudes, but they create the conditions where the supramundane or the transcendent can more easily be realized.
Well, in the spirit of Vajragota, how does creating good karma like that, good karma, take you beyond karma? Why should it do that?
Well, because the more that you create good karma, then the more that there's a sense of self-respect. There's an ease, the body relaxes, the mind relaxes, there's a quality of contentment. And the Buddha said, the mind that one whose mind is content, they don't need to think, may I establish samadhi. It's natural for one who is content, who has sukha, for their mind to be concentrated. One whose mind is concentrated, they don't need to think, may knowledge and vision of the way things are arise. It's natural. It's in accordance with nature that one whose mind is concentrated, knowledge and vision of the way things are will arise. One who's in whom knowledge and vision has arisen, there's no need for them to think, may I let go and be detached. Because for one in whom there is knowledge and vision of the way things are, then the heart naturally becomes dispassionate, detached, and lets go. One who has let go, one whose heart is unattached, there's no need for them to think, may I realize may I experience the knowledge and vision of liberation, because it's natural for one who has let go for the knowledge and vision of liberation to arise.
So
QED.
Yeah, QED. So in describing morality to a Vipassana meditator, a modern mindfulness meditator, have you explored trying to present it as a skillful means?
Yes.
And they still say they don't want to do it, or what? Some strange.
It's an ongoing dialogue, but for the interest of people who are gathered, part of it is to do with the way therapy works in the Western world. That a therapist, and I've had some helpful feedback on this recently. Largely speaking, a therapist is not allowed to make comments about the lifestyle of their client. So that if you're a bank robber, the therapist can't say your anxiety problems would be alleviated if you stopped robbing banks. It's like, Like in the Sopranos, Tony Soprano was a mafioso, but had a profound relationship with his therapist. I don't know if that, I never watched it, but not that most people are anywhere near being a mafioso. But the therapy model is that it's not the therapist's role to make judgments about your personal choices, and that's a clear line that they're not supposed to cross, or they can lose their license if they cross it. Hopefully it's changing, and I had a helpful dialogue with an American psychologist recently who sent me quite a bit of information that was very useful, and there's I think movement in that direction. But my hope, my wish under the Bodhi tree is that slowly but surely the natural connection between behaving in an honest, kind, gentle and harmless way, the natural positive beneficial effects of that on our lives will become apparent, without the idea of it being sort of scolded by some authority figure like thou shalt not, but rather, why do I want to do that to myself? Yeah. Why would I want to put my my hand into the gears and get mashed up? It's like, why would I want to do that? And so hopefully steadily people can bring sila into the picture and recognize that it's it's not an imposition, it's not a limitation, but rather it's a freedom. That maybe the last teaching to share this evening, because I think we're running up to the last minute. So one of the ways that the Buddha speaks about the 5 precepts, and we tend to think of precepts or rules as like, don't do this, don't do that, like no, 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 no. But there's a particular sutta called the Streams of Merit, where the Buddha says, one who takes on the precept of refraining from killing living beings, in doing that, they give the gift of fearlessness to immeasurable freedom from fear, freedom from distress, freedom from anxiety, to innumerable other living beings, and they that grant to themselves immeasurable freedom from fear, freedom from distress, freedom from anxiety in themselves. One who refrains from taking what is not given, one who refrains from sexual misconduct, one who refrains from lying, one who refrains from intoxicants, they give the gift of fearlessness. And so these are called the Mahadana, the great gifts. And they say these are respected and loved and revered from ancient times. So we don't really think of the precepts as a gift, but you're giving fearlessness. It's called Abhayadana. So this morning at the Anumodana, the meal offering, I spoke about dana. So above every kind of material giving, there is, which is called Amisadana. The next level of giving is Abhayadana. And so, I mean, if you walk around and say, I'm really a gift to you, I'm a gift to the world, you should, you're allowed to adore me, I'm a gift to the world, then that's the self-view getting in the way. But if we see that if we are harmless, if we are restrained and respectful of people's property, if we are respectful of sexual relations and commitments, and the social standards around sexual behavior, if we don't tell lies, we don't use intoxicants, then people like to be around us. People draw close. When you come into the room, people don't hide their handbag under the chair, or like, shy, oh no, it's her again. That they know that you're not going to try and get anything from them. You're not going to harm them. You're not going to abuse them. You're not trying to take advantage of them. And so you give Abhayadana. It's a gift of fearlessness. People can relax around you. And so seeing the precepts as a gift to yourself and to others is a different way than just a lot of no, 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 don't. So I think as the evening is cooling off and people are drifting away, it's probably time to formally bring things to a close.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful evening with so much Dhamma that we've heard from great masters. On behalf of the International Tipitaka Chanting Council and all of us here, Venerable Ajahn Amaro, thank you so much. We hope to see you as many times as we can invite you. It would be wonderful to continue to hear the blessed teachings from you. Thank you.
That's the sound of the breaking the gate. I hope you got something from that.
This is just to say that it is being recorded on YouTube, LBDFI, and also tomorrow we'll be having another Dhamma talk by